All right, today we're jumping into something really important. We're going to look at a crisis that's affecting millions of kids in Nigeria, but also an incredible initiative that's flipping the script, turning despair into real opportunity. So let's dive right in.
And I want to start with this. This is the dedication from the TANO Youth Initiative's founding document. It's more than just words, right? It's a powerful promise that really sets the tone for everything we're about to unpack. It's a direct message to the very children at the heart of this story.
Okay, so before we can even talk about the solution, we've got to wrap our heads around the problem. And honestly, the scale of it is just staggering. We're talking about millions, literally millions of children who've become, for all intents and purposes, invisible.
Just look at this number, 10 to 12 million. Let that sink in for a second. And this is just one group of children, the Almajiri. These are kids often sent away from home for religious schooling who then end up having to beg just to survive. It's a figure that's almost impossible to imagine. And the craziest part, it's just one piece of a much, much bigger crisis.
So let's zoom out for a second, get some perspective. Globally, Nigeria accounts for about 15% of all out-of-school children. 15%. That is a huge, disproportionate share, and it's a massive red flag that points to a systemic problem that absolutely needs our attention.
So you have to ask, right? How did things get this bad? Well, it's not just one thing. It's really a perfect storm of issues. You've got chronic poverty, you've got armed conflicts that are tearing families apart and forcing them to move, and then you have these deep, systemic failures in the education system itself. All these things just crash together, creating and fueling the very crisis we see on the streets every day.
Let's actually break that down a bit more, because the numbers are just, wow. We're talking 87 million people living below the poverty line, 2 million children displaced because of conflict, 4 out of every 10 women married before they're even 18, which usually means their education just stops. And then, on top of all that, more than half the schools don't have enough qualified teachers. Every single slice you see here is another wall, another barrier, standing in the way of a child's future.
Okay, so with a problem this massive, it's easy to feel, well, hopeless. But here's the thing. Out of all that, something really personal and powerful started to grow. Let's get into how it all began.
You know, the story of TANO doesn't start in some fancy boardroom. It starts on a street corner. The founder, Sara Adeniyi, was there in 2008 when she saw something that just changed her life. It was a small group of kids, and they were all sharing one single pastry. I mean, so carefully, so meticulously, making sure every single one of them got a piece. And that small act, that resilience, that sense of community, even when they had nothing, that was the spark. That single image is what drove her through years of study, and it's what ultimately led her to create TANO.
And her big realization, her core belief, was this: just giving handouts isn't enough. It's not going to solve the problem. Sure, it might feed a child for a day, but it doesn't build them a future. And that whole philosophy, that these kids need a complete, holistic system of support, that became the absolute bedrock of the entire TANO model. So what does this model actually look like? How does it work? Let's take a look at the TANO blueprint for making real, lasting change.
So the name, TANO, is actually an acronym, and it perfectly spells out their whole mission. It stands for Togetherness, Achievement, Nurture, and Overcome. It's way more than just a catchy name. It's a promise, a commitment to creating a full, complete path for these kids to get off the streets and stay off for good.
Okay, so the whole model is built on these 5 pillars that all work together. First, you've got Together. That's all about reuniting kids with their families if possible. Then Achieve, giving them accelerated education so they can catch up. Nurture is huge. It deals with the physical and emotional trauma they've been through. Overcome gives them actual practical job skills. And then, woven through all of it, is youth leadership, which is amazing. It empowers them to become advocates for themselves and others. The key thing here is that none of these work alone. They're all designed to prop each other up.
So we've seen the how, the blueprint, but now let's get to the why. What does this all actually look like for one of these kids? What does that transformation feel like?
To really make this hit home, let's imagine a boy named Umar. He's not a real person, but his story is very, very real for so many. He's a 12-year-old from Kano, and his life is at a crossroads where this kind of model could completely change everything for him. Think about it. On the street, Umar's world is just about survival.
It's begging, it's the constant noise of traffic, it's total uncertainty. But with TANO, that whole reality just gets turned on its head. Suddenly, the sound of traffic is replaced by a teacher's voice. Instead of begging for food, he's learning a skill, like tailoring. He goes from just trying to make it through the day to actually being able to dream about his future. I mean, look at the difference here. These are two completely different worlds.
And that, right there, that's the ultimate vision. It's such a powerful but simple idea, right? To take these places of despair, the streets, and turn them into places of learning and hope. The goal isn't just about rescuing kids from the streets. It's about helping them overcome that life so completely that the streets just become a memory, a part of a past they've left behind for good.
So, it's one thing to understand the problem and see the solution, and that's powerful for sure. But we can't just be spectators here. This story doesn't just end with us learning about it. It really ends when we decide to become a part of it.
And that brings us to the real question. It's not some abstract idea anymore, it's personal. What can you do to help? What's your role in this story?
And the good news is, there are real, concrete things you can do. You can donate, and that money goes directly to funding these programs. You can volunteer your time and your skills. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher or a coder or just good at organizing things. And you can advocate. Use your voice to push for the bigger policy changes we need. Honestly, every single one of these things helps move the needle.
I want to leave you with this final thought from Sara Adeniyi, because it really gets to the heart of everything. She said, "Every child has the right to dream." Think about that. It's a right, not a privilege. And with our support, those dreams, the dreams of millions of kids who feel completely forgotten, they can and they absolutely must become a reality. So the only question left for all of us is, what role are you going to play?